I woke up in my own bed next to a stranger with a gaping hole where my memory should be. Then I saw her in the doorway and my blood ran cold. My head throbbed, my stomach churned, and a primal fear seized me as I looked at the unknown man beside me, fully clothed but still a stranger. Panic clawed at my throat. I screamed, a raw, terrified sound. Tammy just looked at me, a strange mix of anger and something else I couldn't quite place before she turned and walked away. The man, who I later learned was Peter, jumped up, looking as confused and concerned as I felt. He tried to calm me, explaining that I had been violently ill, throwing up nonstop since we got home around 2:30 in the morning. He said Tammy had basically dumped him with me, then left, only to come back hours later. My mind was a terrifying blank slate. I couldn't remember anything after having just 1 or 2 drinks with Tammy at the bar. Something felt very, very wrong. But that was just the beginning of the nightmare. I was Olivia Reed, 30 years old, living in Maplewood, New Jersey. My boyfriend, who was 36, and I had a good thing going for almost a year or so, I thought. We laughed, we connected, we rarely fought over stupid things. The only problem, the only dark cloud in our otherwise bright sky, was his best friend, Tammy. She was 32, and from the moment I met her, I felt a subtle, unsettling energy. My gut screamed danger, but I dismissed it, desperate to fit into my boyfriend's life, to be accepting. I thought I was strong enough to ignore the subtle cues. I was wrong. What happened next changed everything. The day after that terrifying morning, I was still violently sick, completely incoherent until well into the late afternoon. Peter, the stranger, told me Tammy had left around 4 a.m. and then reappeared around 1 p.m. My phone was gone. I searched everywhere. It was finally in a drawer, hidden away. My diabetes was a serious concern, and Peter knew it. He said he stayed because he was genuinely worried for my life, not because he wanted anything else. He said Tammy was drunk, too drunk to drive, yet she drove herself away, leaving me passed out and vulnerable with a man I barely knew. I was furious, even in my daze. Why would a friend do that? After Peter left, the sickness intensified. I called a cab and went straight to the hospital. Doctors confirmed it. Based on my symptoms, it was highly likely I'd been drugged. They said most substances leave your system within 8 to 24 hours, especially with severe vomiting. There was no doubt in my mind now. Tammy had done this, but I couldn't prove it. I thought that was the worst part. I was wrong. When I finally got back home, my life had imploded. My boyfriend had put all my belongings outside my apartment door, neatly stacked as if I was garbage to be discarded. He had blocked me on every single platform. My heart hammered against my ribs, a painful, desperate rhythm. I couldn't breathe. The man I loved, who I thought loved me, had cast me out. Tammy had already got to him. She painted a picture of me being all over Peter, of me sleeping with him. She told him everything but the truth, and he believed her. My world shattered. It felt like I was drowning, utterly alone, abandoned by the man I loved, all because of a venomous lie. I was trapped in a nightmare I hadn't created, my reputation shredded, my relationship destroyed. There was no way out, I thought, but then a flicker of something cold and hard ignited inside me. I was angry, furious. This wasn't just about my boyfriend. This was about my life, my reputation, my sanity. Tammy wasn't going to get away with this, not on my watch. I wasn't going to let her ruin me and walk away clean. Even if I never got my boyfriend back, I was going to expose her. This was no longer just a breakup. It was a psychological battle for survival. And I decided right then and there I would win. My first move was to piece together the shattered fragments of that night. I went back to the bar, Maplewood Tavern, and found the bartender, a woman I knew casually. I asked her everything she remembered, who I talked to, what I drank, who I was with. She confirmed I only had 1 or 2 drinks, then I tracked down Peter. He corroborated my suspicions. Nothing happened between us. He confirmed Tammy's erratic behavior, her leaving me, and her bizarre return hours later. The more people I spoke to, the more Tammy's version of events crumbled. Meanwhile, Tammy herself kept feeding me subtle lies, twisting her story, insisting she'd only told my boyfriend what she saw, Peter and me in bed together. I wasn't going to lie to him, she'd said, her voice dripping with fake sincerity. My stomach dropped. She was lying to my face, playing both sides, enjoying the chaos she created. And I didn't know it yet, but this was just the beginning of her self-destruction. I swallowed my rage and plotted my revenge. I had to get my boyfriend back, not just for us, but to use him as leverage against her. He was deeply loyal, a quality I once adored, now a weapon in Tammy's hand. I played the long game. I messaged him not with accusations, but with vulnerability, with my confusion, explaining that I felt drugged, that my memory was gone. Slowly, painstakingly, I managed to get him to talk to me. We started hanging out again, cautiously, rebuilding a fragile bridge between us. The moment he let me back into his life, Tammy became agitated. The first time I visited his place, she saw me on the doorbell camera and immediately texted him. "Why is Olivia there?" I saw the text. This led to arguments between us, but it also started to expose the cracks in Tammy's carefully constructed facade. Inconsistencies started piling up, things she told him about me, things she told me about him. He started to see it, a tiny sliver of doubt, but he still couldn't believe his best friend of 7 years would go as far as to drug me. He still thought I might have just drunk too much. I needed proof, irrefutable proof, and I knew exactly how to get it. When Tammy got home later that day, I asked my boyfriend to give us privacy. He hesitated, but he left the room. My hands were clammy, but my resolve was steel. I calmly, carefully placed my phone on the table, recording. No yelling, no accusations, just a calm request for her to tell me her version of everything that happened that night. She started with the same tired, fabricated story, but under my steady gaze, her voice wavered, details changed, her narrative shifted. She contradicted herself multiple times, tying herself in knots. I watched her emotionless as her web of lies unraveled thread by thread. When she finally ran out of gas, I simply told her I knew she was lying, that I knew who she'd spoken to, and that I no longer wanted to be her friend. I left it there. I didn't mention the recording. I wanted to see what she would tell him first. I wanted her to dig her own grave, and that is exactly what happened. Tammy went straight to my boyfriend, a fresh set of lies already on her tongue. She told him I had threatened her, that I said I would punch her out if she didn't change her story to my version of events, and that she was terrified for her safety. My boyfriend, still conflicted, still loyal, told me Tammy didn't feel safe having me at the house. If we were going to keep hanging out, it had to be at my place. He said he was planning on moving soon anyway to get away from the drama, that he was trying to trust me, but that he was caught in the middle. I was honestly offended. His loyalty was admirable, but it was blinding him. I wasn't going to let her win. Not now, not ever, so I waited. I let Tammy keep talking. I let her spread her poison, her twisted version of events, to the entire friend group for another 2 weeks. I heard the whispers, the slanted glances, the pity in some eyes. But I kept my silence, a predator waiting for its prey to make one final, fatal mistake. I listened to the latest lie through a mutual friend, a particularly vicious distortion of my character. That was the moment. I knew it was time to unleash the full force of my revenge. I sat my boyfriend down, his face etched with exhaustion and confusion. He still harbored doubt, still clung to his 7 years of friendship with Tammy. I didn't say a word, I just played the recording. The silence in the room was deafening as Tammy's voice, clear and incriminating, filled the air. He listened to her unravel, listened to her contradictory statements, listened to the deliberate lies she spun. And then he heard her tell him another lie just hours after our conversation, a lie about me threatening her, a fabrication designed to destroy me completely. His face drained of all color. He was completely shocked, his jaw clenched, his eyes wide with a horrifying realization. It wasn't just that she had lied, it was the calculated, cold-blooded malice behind it all. He saw it all then, her constant undermining, her attempts to isolate us, the vicious setup, the relentless campaign of manipulation. He was sickened to his core. He had been manipulated, used, and almost lost the best relationship he had ever had. The betrayal wasn't just against me, it was against him too, a deeper, more insidious kind of emotional sabotage. He saw that the loyalty he prided himself on had been exploited, twisted into a weapon against him. He moved out that very day. He packed his bags and stayed with me until he found his own apartment, putting immediate distance between himself and Tammy, severing ties with the toxic web she had woven around him. We told the entire friend group about the recording, about Tammy's lies, about the setup. We provided the proof, and Tammy, she did nothing. She didn't defend herself. She didn't respond to messages. She didn't even try to fight back. The silence was deafening, a testament to her utter self-destruction. She quietly moved away, disappeared from our lives and from the entire friend group, consumed by her own toxic lies. She embarrassed herself so profoundly that she removed herself from the equation entirely. She wasn't just defeated, she was erased. The best part, my boyfriend and I just celebrated 4 years together. We have a genuinely happy life now, built on trust forged in the fires of betrayal. But there's a quiet knowing in my heart that still chills me. I often wonder what Tammy would have done if I hadn't pushed back, if I hadn't fought for my truth. Would she have just watched me drown in the lies she crafted? The night she left me, drugged and vulnerable, then came back hours later, wasn't just a moment of recklessness. It was a calculated check, a careful monitoring of the chaos she'd unleashed. She wasn't just a jealous friend, she was a predator, orchestrating my downfall, reveling in my despair. The memory of her standing in my doorway that morning, watching me wake up next to a stranger, wasn't just anger, it was triumph. A quiet, terrifying victory in her eyes before it all came crashing down on her. I didn't just survive her attack. I dismantled her entire world piece by calculated piece and watched her vanish into the shadows she created.